What do Jerry curls and the line, "There are more black men in prison," have in common? One, they are both invented by white men. Two, they were worn badly by black people. And three, they left a nasty stain on the shoulders of millions of black men. All right. So the whole issue of there being more black men in college than in prison, or prison versus college, has been very interesting to me in my professional life. I mentioned earlier that I believe that stat, and I actually cited the original authors of the Justice Policy Institute report in my first Breaking Barriers report. Subsequently, I began to read information that contextualized it a different way. However, I didn't really read a lot that just said that it wasn't true. Then I began to examine it a lot more closely, and I started to work with someone named James Morton, who was in the midst of doing the film, looking at a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about today. I was able to pull data from the National Center for Education Statistics that had the enrollment of all non-Hispanic black males at all 4,488 colleges that reported at that time, and the report that the Bureau of Justice puts out every 10 years that shows a comparison. So I became pretty convinced that it was not true about 4 years ago. James Morton released his film Hoodwinked, and it's a movie that I'm in. I talk to him often throughout the development of it. For last year's Congressional Black Caucus Foundation's annual legislative conference, I put together a panel and I hosted a screening of the film Hoodwinked. One of my funders, who also funded the Justice Policy Institute, contacted me to tell me that the Justice Policy Institute was not happy about that film and asked me my opinion about the film and whether or not the film presented them in a negative light. And I had always been pretty firm on the idea that Justice Policy Institute didn't do anything inherently wrong. There is a margin of error with all of that, and I blame mostly how people used and interpreted the report, because the report overall was about states not funding higher education the way that they should and placing too much funds into correctional settings, which I didn't dispute at all. So I never had any problems with the Justice Policy Institute. The day I had the screenings, I was surprised to see press releases I did not authorize on every table from the Justice Policy Institute saying that they stand by their original findings and they had problems with our showing of the film. So I wasn't happy about that someone would just come in and put out these press releases that wasn't clear by me when it was my session. Then after that, I examined the numbers a lot more closely, and I knew that at that point I wanted to really help people to get the best understanding of where this number came from, because there were just so many people that seemed skittish about accepting the fact that there were more black men in college than in prison. So I wrote a series of articles for The Root. In the articles, I broke down these numbers, and this graph is from that article. So right now, there is no dispute about where we are today. Justice Policy Institute will concede the fact that there are more black men in college today than there are in prison. And the number isn't even close. There is a dispute about whether it was ever true. So to get college populations, you can use the National Center for Education Statistics or the American Community Survey. If you use the American Community Survey, you will never find a time when there are more black men in college, in prison. Right there, it was the closest, but that number is still a little bit higher. If you use the National Center for Educational Statistics, you find that in 2001, the number of black men who were incarcerated was higher. Now, one of the things that I thought was interesting was that we have a 108% jump in the enrollment in college males in only 10 years. 108%. So there were two things I thought about that. One, if it's true, then why in the hell hadn't we been celebrating? I mean, God dang. I mean, what do black men have to do for us to say you did something right? Something, we can do something right, right? All right. Or it could be the case that these numbers weren't correct. All right. So what I did was I noticed that around here, there were, when I first started looking at it, there were 4,488 colleges that reported. And then when I wrote the article, I got here, and there were 4,700 colleges that reported. So there were a lot more colleges that came online, like just in that short period of time. So then I looked at 10 years ago how many colleges were reporting, and it was only 3,000-something colleges reporting, and only 2,000 of them reported having any black males. And most of them had empty cells. So then what I did was I looked at the colleges that reported a large number of black males today, but had little or no black males 10 years ago, because I knew it had to be coming from somewhere. So one of the things I noticed was among the colleges that had significant numbers of black males today, but none reported in 2011, was several historically black universities. There were some big state universities. There was also Temple University. Now, the kicker about Temple University is I was there in 2001 as a PhD student. So if you say there are no black men, there are more black men in prison than in college, you're not even counting me. So what it appears that happened around here is that we just didn't have an accurate count. And we can see that the continuity between the two reporting agencies became a lot closer as time went on. So they're validating each other. So the line that seems to not want to go away, that seems to have informed our understanding of who black men are, appears to have never been true in the first place. Now, why does this matter? It matters because it made us juxtapose the needs of young black males who had the potential to go to college with those who are at risk of going into the criminal justice system. It made us believe that instituting things like gang abatement programs and dropout prevention programs, we would increase the college population. It made us believe that we needed to save them from prison before we could even speak about college. But really what we were doing was we were ignoring the millions of young black males who were sitting in these schools, who often feared their own safety, who were just saying, I just want somebody to show me what a college looks like. I just want somebody to tell me how to do good on the SAT. I just need somebody to sit down with me and show me the admissions criteria for various universities and let me know whether or not I'm getting that from this high school. Instead of people coming in saying, we need you to stay away from that gang. So we missed a lot of opportunities here. This is what our school system looks like. This is what the teacher force looks like. and this is what the student body looks like. We see the student body is very diverse, with black and brown kids, Asian kids. The teaching force is not as diverse, which is 66% white female, over 80% white. A lot of people in this category are teaching these kids in our inner city public schools. They are learning from us about the true nature and character of these kids. They have no way to contextualize it. They have no way to understand it other than what we tell them. When we tell them that these kids have a greater chance of going to prison than to college, when we tell them that a third of the young black males that they teach are going to jail, when we tell them that only 13% of the black kids that they work with can read, it gives them cover for their own inefficiencies. It makes them apathetic. It makes them pessimistic about our culture. And it scares them. We don't need anyone to be fearful of our kids. We don't need anyone to have disdain for our culture. We need people to understand the excellence and the brilliance in all of our kids.